So this is part two of my story about 17. So if you tuned into part one, please excuse my frazzleness. Um, if you tuned into part one, I was talking about the relevance of the number 17 for me and how I related it recently. Well, not in recently, as in like even this year. I kind of figured it out a while ago, but something kind of dawned on me because it's like becoming more persistent in my life. And I'm kind of leading to this is leading up to something here. So, in part one of my story time, I basically was just covering the fact that, my life really started to take a turn for, in my opinion, the worst. And you never really know what the universe's plans, what God's plans are for you, but it was not working out that way. I had everything planned. I knew what I wanted to do with my life. I knew how I was going to do it, what steps I was going to take. And it seemed like every single thing I tried to do, it was like, oh, no, you don't. I would try to do it again. Oh, no, you don't. And it just kept going on that way. And I was just like, that's honestly a huge summary of my life. Me trying to do something and somebody coming in and being like, no, you don't. And to this day, I really don't really understand why. Um, it's something I'm investigating because I know that, when I tell like my full story, um, more succinct and concise and more to the point, hopefully properly illustrated in a way that, you'll be in tune, in touch, and be able to learn something about me, about my background. And like I said, me, um, even starting this platform, it took me like 3 years to even start it, to like finally just say, okay, you know what, just do it. I don't like taking pictures. I don't like being in front of the camera. I don't like none of that stuff. But slowly but surely getting out of like, that comfort zone and just like I talked about, even the reason why I didn't like taking pictures and stuff. I mean, there's those rare occasions where, you might be feeling yourself, or it's your birthday, or you're out somewhere, you're having a good time, you had a couple drinks, whatever. But I'm not the kind of person, I was not raised in a way where it's like, someone's whipping out a camera every 5 minutes. I just wasn't raised that way. And the few experiences that I did have that I spoke about, they were not positive ones. So it didn't really reinforce anything positive about that. But again, where I left off with the story, like I said, every single thing I tried to do up until that point after I had turned 17, turning 18. So this is the time frame that I'm working with. It just seemed like everything I had planned after I decided what I wanted to do, it just was terrible. Trying to find a job took me like 3 years. Finally got a job, finally started making money. And, I kind of teased the fact that when I finally started making money, I remember I was at work one day and I got a phone call. And I'm like, I'm like, who the hell has my number here? And like, I can't imagine that there would be an emergency. That wasn't even something that would cross my mind. And I was given a phone number and like a name, and I called the number, and it turned out that it was Bell Canada. And they're like, short version is, they told me that I owed $219 for a phone bill. And I'm like, excuse me? I don't have a phone with Bell Canada. And they're like, yes, you do. And this is the account, and you owe, your past due. If you don't pay it, it's going to go to collections, and we're going to garnish your wages. And I'm like thinking, how the hell do these people get my phone number at work? This is a job that I just started a couple of weeks ago. Like, how do they get my number at work? All this weird stuff. So, again, fast forward, turns out that, although there was a whole bunch of denial, um, my a phone was put in my name. And because I was so terrified at what I had seen happen, like growing up, with like the cable getting disconnected, the phone getting disconnected, sometimes there not being enough money for certain things, needs, never mind wants. That was like, if that was a possibility. Um, all kinds of just like financial struggles. And so I was, it was obvious to me like that, me asking that question I was not going to get a straight answer. And just the lies that I was told about how potentially the company found out where I work, and let me just bypass all of that. The point is, my very first paycheck went to paying off somebody else's debt. So I was just like, oh my gosh. So no co-op. Now I'm working full time, doing the rest of my the couple credits that I need to do, and my first paycheck, hoping to go towards my future, now has to go to a past due bill that's not even my responsibility. So ultimately, I ended up taking over the phone because it kept getting disconnected when it was left to other people's responsibility. So I started paying the phone bill because I had a choice between, at like back at that in those days, if anybody remembers, that's when those phone plans were like free after like 6, free after 8, free on the weekends. You have a certain limited number of minutes. It was like those types of cell phone deals, or plans rather. So it was kind of like, okay, it was more advantageous for me to get a landline than for me to have a cell phone at that time. And it was cheaper. So I said, okay, you know what, let me just get a house phone. So the house phone was in my name. And of course, it never got disconnected because I paid the bill. That was annoying, but it's just something that I had to deal with. Um, so what else had happened? Yeah, I started saving up, buying little materials and things for what I wanted to do with my future. Like I said, I'll get into it at some point, but I started buying little materials and things for what I wanted to do and saving it. And then here comes, you know, eviction notice. You're going to get kicked out. So fast forwarding again this story, because this was nothing new. Fast forwarding this story, I had to put my stuff in storage, and everything that I had saved, everything that I had purchased went away. Why? Because the storage bill wasn't paid. And then even when I went through the situation of me saying, okay, you know what, just give me the name of the storage company, I will pay it. I was not even given that information. So all the money that I had invested into my future again just went down the toilet. And this was just the cycle that I kept going through over and over and over again. It was just like disappointment after disappointment after disappointment after disappointment. And I was just like, this cannot be my life. It can't be my life. Um, so 17 was like really difficult for me. It was a very difficult age. And it feels like it felt like it was never going to end. So essentially, it's like this dragged on into year 18 of my life. And it's kind of like the more responsible that I proved myself to be is the more responsibility I was given. It was like, oh, okay, well, if I don't pay this or if I don't do that, then, she'll do it. And that's just basically the way that my family kind of looked at me. And that's why I took on that name for like my emails and different things like that. I always used to use the name Sinderella. It was not because I was thinking some prince is going to save me. It was more the idea that, you have siblings who are literally feeling entitled and just doing whatever they want to do. No one's looking at them to do anything, even though they might be older than you or have no responsibilities. People are looking at you to do everything. And I was just like, kind of, I guess, just succumbing to my situation rather than trying to, because I know a lot of people, unfortunately, that around those ages moved out on their own because they're kind of like, if they were in similar situations as the one that I was in, they kind of just figured, okay, get a roommate. But those were also people that had children very young. Those were also people that, were just out there kind of wild and like just doing whatever they wanted to do. But I had a plan and I knew what I wanted to do with my life. I even started looking into school because I knew I wanted to take at least a year off. I never wanted to have any debt. I never wanted to own a credit card. I was so traumatized by everything I experienced in my life. And that affected me a lot. Like some people, they have to learn from their own mistakes. But I'm the kind of person that I look at other people and I'm like, it's the exact opposite to like the third degree. It's like, I'll look at them like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get a credit card because I don't want anybody calling me if I can't pay and da, 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 and just worrying. Instead of saying, no, you're responsible. You've proven yourself to be responsible. If you were to get a credit card or a loan or anything like that, or go to school and have like a student loan, you could pay it off. You'll find a way. Like you're good at this. But that's not how I was viewing it. I just was viewing it as like just being completely paranoid about doing anything and making any moves in my life because of the stuff that I had experienced. So it was difficult, but yeah, so moving along, it's just like more and more responsibility came on me until the point that literally by about the age of 20, I was already paying full rent, cable, phone bill, cell phone, um, groceries. I was cooking, cleaning, vacuuming, mopping, like full Cinderella story. I swear, I kid you not, doing all of that stuff. Ask if anybody was doing anything else but watching television. So I don't know what made me feel like that sense of responsibility, but yeah, I'm like one of those cases that, you go to counseling and they say, oh, you never really had a childhood. Um, so yeah, I've always said like almost my whole entire life up until like these past few years, I've always said I've been feeling old since I was 17. I've always felt old since I was 17. And I don't know if like there's any past life stuff, if there's any karma that I'm living out or whatever it is, but you know, regardless of whatever happened, it did teach me a lot. It, taught me how to budget. It taught me how to take care of myself. It taught me how to trust myself. Um, but then there's other things that happen that I'm going to save for another time that kind of had the adverse effect, like the complete opposite effect, where something happens long enough that it starts to become your reality. And it's like you just expect things to go wrong instead of you saying and being confident in the things that you've overcome. You just expect it to go wrong. So, where are we now? So I would say, yeah, like, so when I found myself like paying like full bills and stuff like that, fast forward, I just said, okay, it's time for me to go. So there's a whole lot of drama that happened in between there, like having a roommate and, you know, um, still trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to go to school and go to work at the same time? Because it was just too much. It was overwhelming. And a huge thing that happened for me was, and something that I try to preach to people is I never processed the things that I went through. So they were kind of on me as like baggage. So I always just felt heavy. Like I was just always carrying a lot of weight. And um, because of that, it just did not allow me to really continue to go as full steam ahead as I was going before. Because I felt like, what's going to happen next? Like that whole waiting for the next shoe to drop. So I was just proceeding with caution at all times. So instead of me being that fearless person that even though I was shy and reserved, I was still pushing myself and doing things and jobs that I never thought I would do. Not anything like bad. I mean, just jobs where you had to be like, hi, how can I help you? And it's like, meanwhile, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I don't even want to make eye contact with people in the mall. It's like I had to push myself because there's things that I wanted and I wanted them more than I was shy. So there's just so much I had to like deal with. But like, again, it turned into the opposite, where it was like I found myself just becoming more and more, just feeling more burdened and defeated with everything I was trying to do because I just felt like, why is this not working for me? And there's so much other drama that, again, like I cannot get into for so many different reasons. But it, like I said, the story will be told. I mean, we're gonna lead all the way up until maybe not on this platform, like I said, but all the way up until the spiritual attacks and all the different things that I've been experiencing, and just all the weirdness is just it's just been drama. I mean, it's not to say I'm like the perfect person or anything like that, but honestly, I'd like to see where I made the mistake, other than giving people too many chances. That's really one of the biggest mistakes that I've ever made. And that's why I try to like let people know that, it's important to let go of what no longer serves you. When you realize that you're dealing with something that is not working for you, or that it's causing you more problems and headaches than anything else, it doesn't matter who it is in your life. If they are not respecting you, not like saying like, if it's a parent and they have to respect their child, but there is a certain level of respect that a parent shows a child regardless of whatever age they are, because they're an individual. At the end of the day, one day they're going to leave home and you're going to probably at some point expect them to take care of you. So how you treat them is really going to dictate, how they end up treating you later in life, in a lot of ways. I mean, there's some people, like I remember I heard of Tyler Perry's story where he was talking about how, regardless of how his father treated him, he still took care of his father in his old age. And because he felt like it was the right thing to do, whether it be like religiously the right thing to do, or still that sense of obligation or wanting to people please, or maybe one day his father will turn around and say, oh, my son did this for me, and give him some sort of love, affection, gratitude, something. It could have been any number of things. I really don't know. But I personally, from my experience, had to learn. I feel like my biggest lesson, and why I kept having to repeat certain cycles, was to learn that some people just do not deserve that kindness from you. They didn't earn that kindness from you as just one human being to another. Yeah. But in terms of paying bills, in terms of like turning the other cheek so they can just slap you on the other side of your face, like, no, like no one should ever find themselves in any sort of situation like that. So that did involve me, like, slowly distancing myself from my family and creating healthy boundaries. Like, if I can't talk to you right now because, I'm irritated with you and you're not apologizing for what you did, even though you did something wrong, or you're lying to me about certain things, you just gotta, it is what it is. Like at the end of the day, it's like almost like survival of the fittest. Like, what am I gonna do? Like, continue to be like a mat that you walk all over and take advantage of? Or am I gonna eventually live my life? Like, there's so many things that I wanted to do so long ago and it never happened. But at the end of the day, I personally, like I said, I'm a Christian. I strongly believe in God. And I feel like if something happens, it's because God allows it. Even right down to the spiritual attacks that I was experiencing. It's like God had to let that happen. And what was the reason for it happening? It's not like, I felt the full effect of what anything, like what anybody was doing, but I was made aware of it, and certain things were happening in my life that I found out was a result of what somebody was doing, not just somebody, people. So, and that situation's not over with. I mean, it's winding down, but that situation is not over with. But there was something to learn from that. And again, I will talk about that one day. But that's still stuff, it's like when I feel like I have a moment to recover from something, then something else comes again. And it's just like, oh my gosh, like literally, this is not what I thought. Like, this is not how I thought my life was going to be at all. Like, period. Especially, like I said, like if you know exactly what you want to do with your life, you planned it out, you mapped it out, you, excuse me, you fought past all of your fears to like really go head first into what it is that you wanted. And then you still kept getting like hit with like block after block after block after block after block. It's like, I started to wonder, were these blocks happening because I wasn't supposed to be doing it? Or were these blocks happening because I was supposed to learn how to fight through them? So that's where I'm going to leave this part of the story. There's only 2 parts left, not very long. But yeah, this all has to do with, again, like where my life started at 17, having that, for argument's sake, I'll say freedom, because I was technically in school, but out of school, working full time, trying to pursue my dreams, my passions, but then constantly being thrown backwards with everything that I was doing, just constantly being thrown backwards. And how I feel like everything has kind of come full circle for me right now. So that's part 2. Yeah, stay tuned for part 3. I don't know when I'm going to delve into that part, probably in the next little while. But yeah, we're going to talk about how things continue to just go and eventually, kind of me realizing how to maneuver these situations and where I'm at right now, and how I feel that 17 resonates with me today. So, yeah, thanks for listening. Hopefully, it gives you a little bit more insight to me as a person, and where my heart is at and where my mind is at, and some of the things that I've been through. So when I really start delving into the deeper, darker parts, yes, it does get darker. When I start delving into the deeper, darker parts, of some of the things that I've experienced and that I've been through. I mean, nothing like super heavy, thank God. Like, it's not like I am, knock on wood, I there's no like abuse or anything like that, other than like obviously emotional abuse or neglect, if you want to call it that. Um, but yeah, just, how that age really defined my life up until this point. So, yeah, until next time, until part three, I guess. Life, I tell ya. All right, take care of yourselves and peace and blessings until next time.